everyone, welcome back to another segment of Team Meets. It's been a while, so I'm very excited to be back here with Mr. Craig Foster.
Hello.
Wonderful to have you. So obviously Craig is a very established Australian. Not only does he have an incredible career as being a football player for the Australian national team, but he has also done some incredible humanitarian work with Amnesty International and Addison Road, and recent recipient of the Order of Australia as of 2021 this year. How incredible. So I guess my first question would be is who or sort of what inspired you to take on this activism work that you've been doing recently?
Yeah, good question. You mentioned the AM, so the Order of Australia, and that's really interesting when it comes to activism, because when I received that, I said to people, look, to be honest, if you're getting awards for refugee activism, which I largely was in part, one refugee was a young football kid who was in Thailand, but after that I've spent a lot of time working on the broader refugee issue, then you're probably not doing it well, because those types of issues, they need activism because the country's in a bad place when it comes to the mistreatment of those people.
Absolutely.
And so if you're going to really genuinely advocate for them, then you are going to put a lot of people offside, and you have to be prepared to put people offside, including the government. And that can be a little bit of a fine balance when it comes to activism, because people respond well to large sections of the truth, but not always the entire truth. Take, for instance, in climate action, okay, people who are able to advocate for climate action strongly, but keeping enough people engaged in the issue are making change. But you also need the outliers as well, who really, they just pretty much offend everyone, but they're right in what they say. And so this is a balance that I find difficult when it comes to human rights and social activism, because my makeup is more just to, tell people the reality and speak the truth as it is. But sometimes, the public and society, government's never ready, and even governments are not ready for those conversations. So ultimately, you're trying to make change, and there's different degrees that you have to choose of your activism to try and bring that about. So look, I played football. Football is the most multicultural game. It's a game that sends us around the world. We're not just caged here in Australia, play against each other. Yeah. We spend much, if not for many, most of our professional careers overseas.
Yeah.
So playing against every nation in the world, and living in Asia, living in Europe, and of course when you're living there, you're in other cultures, but you're also, your team, because it's football, your team is from everywhere in the world. So for instance, if I played for Crystal Palace or captain Crystal Palace in London, it's not just that I'm in the English context, because my team has Italians, French, Egyptian, so everyone converges. So in my game, wherever you are part of a multicultural tapestry. So what that means is that we learn about multiculturalism and, by definition, equality very early in the game of football. Because if you're my teammate, how can I play with you and be in the dressing room together, and then outside I don't stand for your rights? It's not possible. And so, football gave me that understanding, and then I've just taken it on to the rest of my life.
Amazing. Yeah. I guess that sort of leads me to the next question, which earlier you said, it was sort of a challenge kind of establishing what humanitarian work that you wanted to do, especially about like government and, convincing people. What other sorts of challenges have you had to overcome, both, in your career as an athlete and also doing activism and advocacy work?
Well, I think we all face the same challenges. We just face them in different degrees, perhaps, or in different contexts. But humans are all built the same, and basically we all are trying to find, what life means. People are trying to get a sense of purpose. They're trying to work out what meaningful work is for them. I think people no longer want to expend tens of thousands of their hours of what is a short life working in fields that they don't respond to, that they don't care about, that they have no real passion for. I think those things are important. They're the big challenges that everyone faces. For me, I was able to play sport to a high level. That gave me an opportunity to speak about things, and at least the community of your sport will listen. They might not agree, but they will listen. And then if you are skilled, or perhaps you do other things, you can then move outside of that to talk to a broader population, and you can have a bigger platform, if you like, broader. So in other words, many sports people are influential within their sport. Some then transcend that and can speak to, their country or even to the world. And I just felt a responsibility to do so. That brings various challenges. I mean, being effective is the most important one.
Yeah.
That's the biggest challenge. You can spend a lot of time talking and a lot of time advocating, and you can feel good about what you're doing, but that doesn't mean that you're being effective.
Yeah, bringing change is obviously the most important part.
That's it.
Not as tangible as, showing up to events every now and then.
Exactly.
It's about consistency and making the change is important.
Yeah, and so there's many ways to do that. Like, if the most effective people are the ones who can pick up a phone and change policy without having to create a campaign. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, in some instances, the more noise you make, the less effective you are, right? Because making noise is very often the last step. It's the last option to get change, because it's usually the least effective, or it takes time anyway. So social change and progress, to me, is about the balance of speaking to public, bringing people along on a journey, on an issue, on a narrative, changing the narrative, so working in the media space, but also working with government. And at times it's possible to work with government to make policy change. At other times it's clear that it's not going to work, and you have to then resort to making more noise, bringing more people. You need more masses. When you get masses, you can shift the political spectrum, and then you can bring change through lobbying and dialogue. So that's the balance that you're constantly trying to measure. But in the end, all you're trying to do is make the change that's necessary. So if we talk about refugees, women's rights is the same. Non-sexual discrimination and, a sexual assault of women in Australia is a really important one.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, it's about changing the law and getting that change. If we can do it quickly, we do it quickly.
Definitely. So what do you think has been sort of the most important thing that you've learned over these activities that you've undergone?
So we're sitting at the moment at Addison Road Community Centre in Marrickville, right, where I'm an ambassador, and I've spent the last 20 months. When COVID hit, I came here to help pack food hampers for people, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah.
And this place has taught me many lessons. The biggest lesson to come out of COVID is and corresponds with what my understanding of social advocacy is, and my work to help Indigenous rights and refugee rights, women's rights, is just people coming together and the power of community, not just the importance of community. And during COVID, when COVID was about separation of people, stay 1.5 metres away, don't go to people's houses, we can't be together, it taught us, I think, very powerfully the value and the meaning of us all being together. And because human beings are communal species, communal animals, and so this place has reiterated that to me, and that also goes to the heart of social change. The more people can come together on issues, the more power they have in their hands. And in fact, I would say the opposite is true. People have power in their hands, and if they decide to use it, they can come together and change anything. That's the big lesson.
Yeah. The creation of a movement is so important, and I think no better place to learn it than here at Addison Road.
Totally right.
Yeah. So obviously you do a lot of activities. I mean, you've had a very impressive career and you do a lot of activism work throughout various organizations. How do you do it all, I guess, manage your time and, kind of focus on issues that you care about?
Well, I've been fortunate because I played sport firstly, and that gave me a grounding and an opportunity to move into media, where I still am today. I still do some media around football and sport and social issues and other things. And media is a bit like sport in that you can choose the level and the time commitment that you want to make. So I make a time commitment in the things that I do that suits where and what I want to be. So in other words, I'm not interested in going and spending 14, 16, 18 hours a day or 24 hours a day, as some people do, in any particular field. I certainly wouldn't do it in something that I don't feel passionate about.
Yeah.
But even if I did, I have many things that I like to do, so I just apportion them and I make sure that I always have the time to do things that I think are helpful for others. So I'm not motivated by going to build something that's going to make me more financial, to build something that's only going to have economic value. I've never been motivated by that, even when I was young. To play sport, to me, was about being in a team and trying to achieve something. It was never about the money that came with it. I'm the same today. So I've never woken up in the morning and thought, okay, I need to go something where I'm going to make a huge amount of money. But because I do something that I'm passionate about, media and sport are areas where, I've been fortunate to have those financial rewards anyway. And what that does is that gives me the opportunity then to say, well, I want to spend this week working at Addison Road, or I want to spend this week going to Port Moresby and helping refugees, or I want to fly to Darwin and try and get a family out. Whatever it is, I have the freedom to just say, look, I'm going to go and help this family here, or I'm going to go and see the government tomorrow. And that's how I like it. I like to have the freedom. If tomorrow I thought that there was an issue that was so important that I needed to fly off somewhere and go spend 6 months doing it, I would do it.
Wow, how inspirational. And I guess second sort of last question is, do you have any advice that you would give to maybe young people who are aspiring to either be athletes or enter this sort of field of humanitarian work, sort of similar to what you've been doing?
Yeah, I hope there are plenty that, young people who will consider the value of just working for the common place, meaning work to make things better for everyone. You can just help individual people, you can fight a cause within that, the global commons, if you like, means the space that we all share, and every culture moves around it, and every religion and culture has differences. But in the middle, there must be a space where we all come together and we all have a shared set of expectations and responsibilities and protections as humans. So anyone who feels emboldened and impassioned to work in this space, I think, is wonderful. Sadly, from a financial perspective, the world doesn't recognise that as it should. So the crazy thing about the world is that the world has decided that someone who works in finance, let's say a banker, and I have many banker friends, but that a banker who shifts numbers around on a computer screen should be paid, a $10 million salary or bonus, and someone who works to save or help the Uyghurs in China, there's 2 million people there, that this person should be paid a meagre wage, which is barely living standards.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems with humanity that we actually need to sort out. I mean, women as carers of children, women, as bringing children up in families, not just in Australia, but all around the world, domestic care, all of these, teachers, how we've devalued teachers. I mean, it's extraordinary. All of us would say, I'm a long way ahead of you in age. And the thing is, I remember the great teachers that I had. The power that they have is an incredible gift and responsibility. Correspondingly, overlooked. A bad teacher, and by bad I mean someone who doesn't treat the students well, can direct them in the wrong way, make inappropriate comments, at young ages of kids can be really harmful. They have incredible power in their hands, and they have to wield it very, very carefully. There's a lot of harm done, but there's a lot of beautiful work done by teachers. And the fact that society has not said that that's one of the most important professions that you can possibly have, when little humans are this old, to this in the formative stages, you're going to have care of them like 8 hours a day, and that's incredibly important to us as parents or as society, right? Incredible influence. That shows you how society has, I think, is out of balance in terms of the way that we value different professions, and the human rights area is one of those. People can go and literally free 1 million people, and the financial system doesn't reward them from doing so.
Yeah.
Okay, all of them and all of us working in that field are not motivated by the money, but the problem is a lot of incredible talent, acumen, knowledge and brain power in young people is directed as traffic on the freeways into finance, into law.
Yes.
Okay, because that's what they're told is necessary. So all of those things, I think society needs to reorient and reconsider.
Yeah.
And so anyone who feels impassioned to do so, I would say good. There's nothing more rewarding. I think it's, to go and help people or to try and rebuild society in ways that are helpful is the most important thing that you can possibly do. Because just go get another car or another house or another apartment, it's not fulfilling for human beings. You might have a great Instagram account, okay, for sure. People are going to think that it really looks great. But don't worry, I know a lot of people who have nothing. I know a lot of people, and I live in worlds of broadcasting and media, and I live in the human rights world, so I span both. And what we have is not who we are, and what we have and own is not fulfillment. It's a long, long, long way from it. So don't chase that. Chase what you're impassioned about, what you love, what you want to change, how you want to make a contribution, and the world will come to you when you really go after it.
I couldn't agree more, honestly. You just put everything so eloquently into words there. Okay, final question is, do you have any sort of exciting other events or projects that you're going to pursue in the new year?
Oh, well, this is a good one for 2022 that we're going to bring up, and Racism Not Welcome is a national campaign, a movement at grassroots. So 2021 it started because there was so much racism during COVID. Next year we'll now take it to the next level. We'll have a lot of initiatives in many councils around the country and start to build a conversation nationally. So that's going to be good. Aside from that, there's always a lot of projects on, but I always look ahead with optimism. And what I've learned is that if you're open to change and to just doing good things, then you don't know what the future holds. Next year I'm sure there'll be something amazing happening where it's like this year was the Afghan crisis. It happened, and so we were able to work to get a couple of hundred women and female athletes out of there, and young girls who are here. We didn't know that was going to happen. It just happens. So it's just about responding to things and just working according to your purpose. If that's what you want to do, there's always opportunities to do it.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you so much for your time
Pleasure.
here today. As always, I'll put more information about both Craig's social media and the projects that he's working on, as well as plenty of links to Addison Road if anyone is interested in supporting or learning more about these causes. So thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.
It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Okay, great.